Welcome to today's explainer. Go ahead and hop right into our virtual Outback vehicle, buckle up, and let's head straight into the sun-soaked fields and vast red dirt plains of Australia. We're going to explore the incredibly unique, heat-loving, and frankly amazing farm animals that manage to thrive down under. It's a question we really have to stop and consider. How do farm animals survive the scorching outback? I mean, the Australian environment is famously extreme. We are talking about massive open spaces, blazing intense sunshine, and rugged terrain that would challenge almost any living thing. So how do these animals not just survive, but actively thrive and produce in such a massive, hot, and challenging landscape? Okay, let's dive into this. On our itinerary for today, we'll start with Welcome to the Outback, then move on to the grazing giants, check out the clever climbers and foragers, and finally look at the Outback helpers and flyers. So, Section 1, Welcome to the Outback, Surviving the Sun-Soaked Fields. To handle this absolute extreme of an environment, Australian farmers have spent generations developing biological super breeds fine-tuned for these exact conditions. Moving right along to Section 2, the grazing giants, masters of the sun-scorched plains. When you picture Aussie agriculture, you're probably thinking of massive cattle stations and endless flocks of sheep, right? Well, your standard cattle, suited for cooler climates, would struggle big time here. But contrast them with the Queensland Drought Master. This breed is tough as nails, created right in Queensland. Their signature loose skin and big floppy ears actually act like natural radiators to help the animal dump heat when the sun is just blazing. And they aren't the only champions out on the plains. You've also got the Australian Illawarra Shorthorn. That's a stunning, locally developed dairy cow famous for pumping out rich, creamy milk, even while grazing on these sun-drenched pastures. If we roll down the windows of our Outback vehicle, the message from these perfectly adapted giants is pretty clear. G'day, time to munch on some fresh gum leaves and grass. It is just amazing to see them so totally at home in a climate that would send most animals running for the nearest air conditioning unit. And this brilliant biological engineering extends right to the sheep too. Take the legendary Australian Merino, which was bred for the chilly southern winds to grow literally the absolute softest, finest, most luxurious wool on the planet. But out in the harsh outback, you need the Australian White. This is a modern breed designed specifically to thrive in the heat. Their primary trait? They grow a natural coat of hair that sheds all by itself. Absolutely no haircuts required. It is a truly stunning example of engineering an animal for a very specific extreme climate. So whether they're shedding their hair in the baking sun or growing thick coats for the cool winds, these woolly wonders are absolute superstars of the farm. It really makes you appreciate the voice of the farm playfully declaring, "Bah! My wool is super soft and cozy." All right, on to Section 3. Clever climbers and foragers, bush trackers and orchard explorers. Because the rugged bush and shady orchards require a totally different kind of animal. Let's talk about the clever oinkers of the outback. You might hear about wattles, these funny, fleshy little tassels hanging right under the chin of kunekune pigs. Originally from across the ditch in New Zealand, these short, round, super friendly pigs are huge on Aussie hobby farms because they actually prefer eating grass instead of digging up and destroying the dirt. And they share these spaces with classic Berkshire pigs, the ones with the cute upright ears and black and white boots, who love nothing more than exploring orchards and pasture fields. These highly intelligent animals love roaming around, foraging for a bit of shady relief from that intense midday heat, essentially saying, "Oink oink, pass the apples, mate." Now, goats perfectly illustrate how vastly different breeds adapt to specific human needs versus wild survival. On one hand, you have Aussie mini goats. They're bred specifically in Australia to be tiny, playful, and friendly lawn helpers for smaller properties. But in stark contrast, you have the Australian rangeland goats. These guys are the ultimate survivalists. They roam the vast open spaces of the outback, and they're famous for being super tough, incredibly quick on their feet, and fully capable of clearing out dense, difficult bushland. They're basically the acrobats of the outback, just full of energy and declaring, "Ma, watch me bounce off this rock." Which brings us to Section 4, Outback helpers and flyers, keeping the homestead moving. Look, navigating these giant Australian spaces requires serious, active teamwork. Farmers absolutely rely on certain animals just to get the job done. Enter the Brumby, the famous, strong, and clever free-roaming wild horse of the Australian bush. But while they are tough survivors of the rugged high country, it's actually their domesticated cousins, the Australian stock horses, that are the vital helpers here. The stock horse is the ultimate outback cowboy horse. They're fast, incredibly smart, and agile enough to help riders herd cattle across giant, bumpy bush tracks that vehicles literally cannot cross. To see an Australian stock horse at work, galloping alongside a herd of cattle, is honestly pure poetry in motion. They just love the work, channeling that incredible equine spirit. Nay, let's race across the golden plains. Back at the homestead, the feathered Aussie mates are keeping things moving. Take the Australarp. It's a brilliant black chicken born right in Australia that actually holds world records for laying tons of fresh brown eggs without stopping. They are an absolute powerhouse of the poultry world. And right alongside them, you'll often find the Australian game fowl. That's a proud, upright, really alert bird with a rich history on rural farms, happily scratching around the dirt on those sunny homesteads. And what's beautiful about the Australorp is that in the intense outback sun, their black feathers actually sparkle with a brilliant green tint. It's a gorgeous sight. And you can practically hear them showing off, cluck, 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 look at my shiny green feathers. To bring our tour to a bustling crescendo, let's rapid fire through a few final stars of the farm. First up, emus, giant, incredibly fast, flightless birds raised for their healthy meat and nutrient-rich oil. Then alpacas. They're kept on small, cool climate farms across southern Australia, providing ultra-soft fleece for warm winter scarves. And finally, we cannot forget the tiny but mighty honeybees, buzzing happily through the forests to make that sweet, distinctively flavored Australian eucalyptus honey. It really is a perfect, sweet way to round out our safari. The hum of the farm is punctuated by that tiny voice, buzz, time to collect nectar from the eucalyptus blossoms. Because every single creature, whether they're giant or tiny, plays a completely unique role in this delicate, sun-scorched ecosystem. So, as we park our virtual Outback vehicle and wrap up today's explainer, I really want to leave you with this final crucial thought. How might these specialized Outback superbreeds help global farming as climates change worldwide? Just think about it for a second. We've just spent this time learning about cattle with built-in radiators, sheep that literally shed their own hair, and horses that thrive in arid, bumpy landscapes. As temperatures rise globally and environments become far more extreme, the biological secrets of these tough, heat-loving Australian animals might just hold the absolute key to the future of agriculture everywhere. It is a fascinating thought to take with you. Thanks so much for joining me on this structured journey through the Outback, and as always, keep on learning.